Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pain Scale. Today I'm here with you for a brand new video type for my channel at least. Story time. And this specific story time will be about growing up with abusive parents and also being around abusive adults, just in general, and how that can affect you, which I think that's very important. I don't think people really realize the effect on a child's psyche when they're around very toxic adults, and then you're told as a kid to respect the adults, or take inspiration from adults, but it's like what does it mean, or what does that mean for a child when the only adults that they are around are toxic. So I'm going to go ahead and just give a brief overview of my childhood, at least what I can remember from my childhood. I don't remember a lot from my childhood. I wasn't told. I've seen some things that kind of seemingly went over that briefly, like why you can't remember your childhood, and I believe it was due to some form of trauma, especially as you experience as a kid, why you can't remember a lot of your childhood. So I'm gonna go over, um, you know that, and I was good, I'll go ahead and give a trigger warning. If you've had a very abusive childhood, because this I will be talking about abuse, um, mental and physical, stuff like that. Um, and it can be very uncomfortable. So if you're not comfortable with listening to these, feel free to um, log off the video, or go to another video, or take care of yourself in any other sort of way. But yeah, let me go ahead and talk about my childhood. As a kid, um, I remember, and it's very surreal. Like for a time, I remember being like, or the feeling of what seems to be truly happy. It's like I was so amazed with the world around me. The sky, to this day, I love just looking up to the sky. That's something I believe I carried on from childhood. Just amazed, like wow, like it looks so beautiful. And just nature too. That was the good parts. But um, going to more of the abuse, like I had very abusive parents. Um, and let me go ahead and say first and foremost, I've seen some posts of like quotes and stuff on like Instagram reels when I was on Instagram. Um, that said, oh, this is your parent, this is your mother's or your father's first time living, as well, just like it's your first time, though, there's truth in that, it's your mother's and father's first time living. That does not excuse any sort of abuse of any kind, or for that does not excuse them to expose you to any sort of abuse, so if you are not mentally prepared, or can't take care of a child, whether that be financially, but way above financial, if you cannot take care of a kid, emotionally, and teach them emotions and stuff like that, and how to help them so that understand themselves more, you have absolutely no business having a child, so I don't want nobody going out there and saying like, oh well, even though I was abused, this is my mother's and father's first time um being alive too. So there's like no, none of that shit. There is no excuse for exposing a child to abuse, none at all. But different ways I was exposed, to abuse as a kid. it was through different ways. My dad was very violent. Um, Coming, understanding while growing up, and as you hear things more and more, and you start to understand more things. I was told he did drugs. I know he was an alcoholic. There's it's hard for me to remember a day that I remember some days that he didn't drink, but those are very rare. He did drugs um, when I was a kid. As a kid, I do remember like he would drive me and my mom, and we would sit in a car outside of this house, and like we'd just be saying, like, I almost want to say, like, I couldn't really, it's hard for me to perceive time, at that age of a kid. But from now, I'm guessing what I can perceive now. I'm guessing, it was hours, that he was in somewhere doing drugs. So that was not okay at all. And he was very violent when he was drunk, or when he was doing drugs. He would hit my mom, stuff like abuse, like right in front of me. That definitely took a big hit on my mental health. And from that, I'm not trying to, when I say this, I'm not trying to protect my mom at all, because she's guilty of traumatizing me as well. It seemed like at the time um, she was the more reasonable parent. Like, she didn't want to fight. She just wanted to be happy, stuff like that, and she actually cared about me. So my mom's been through some trauma as well. I understand that, as a human being. But after that, she put me through trauma as well, whether yelling at me or keeping me around people that she should not have. She would mentally, abuse me. And to this day, my mom helps me financially. I appreciate that, but it's like, to her, it seems like she only, like, understands love as monetary things or money. I don't think she truly understands, love is more than money. I think she has mental health issues of her own. She's like bipolar, and I'm guess something else in there. I remember she drank. This was when I was more in like my preteen age, where she got drunk, and I went to Illinois, and she drank a lot of something, and she like completely flipped out. Like, she had, like, I guess this is like a bipolar episode. Like, I was scared as a kid. And if that wasn't to boot, there's a very toxic family dynamic in there as well. I can't speak for all of my family. My aunt, to this day, I live with my aunt. She's like one of my best friends, or she is my best friend. We've had our differences sometimes, but she's like the only person in my family, or one of the only persons I can say, like, I honestly do, like, care about, and actually, like, because she tries to help me, and we try to stay positive and stuff like that. And you know so my aunt's a very positive influence. One of my cousins is, um and that's about it, I would say, at this point. I have three siblings. I have three sisters. Two of them I've decided not to talk to, and one, I have not really spoken to. I just found out about her. I want to say this was just years ago. Like, I truly discovered her. Like, oh wow, like, you have a third sister. Like, it's like okay. um, so I know she's out there doing her own thing. So we'll see how that goes. If I ever speak to her again. But my family, a big part of the family that I live with was very toxic. Whether it'd be my mom or, her immediate family, which was her mom and her brother. They're very toxic people. Um, both of my sisters, I can say, are toxic. Obviously, I just said it too. Both of my parents are very toxic. Um, and I just had to deal with a lot of shit. And then at school, I wasn't the best student in the world. But I've known a lot of top really shitty teachers in my time. When I hear a lot of the things like, oh, Gen Alpha is driving teachers out, it's like it makes me wonder. I've met a lot of bad teachers, but how many bad teachers are out there? Not to say there's issues with this new with these new kids coming out, because I can't, when it comes to school, I speak very defensive towards kids going to school, because I had such a negative experience when I went to school. So I usually always speak in the favor of the children, or the kids, because I know, because of my past experiences, I won't go into like too deep, because again, it's kind of hard to uh yeah, I mean, look back at my past, especially my traumatic areas. It's kind of hard to remember everything. But I was around some very very toxic teachers, so it's just it's unfortunate. When I grew up, uh, I was I just real like looking back now, like just not just strictly adults, but just a lot of people I was around, whether they were people my age or a little bit older or adults. It was very toxic around me. So I've had a lot of toxic experiences in my life. You know, so I'm gonna end off that part for the story time. But I just wanted to say here at the end, if you are, struggling with, toxic parents or around toxic, adults, especially as a kid, you need to realize, that affects you in so many ways. Like, people don't become bad people, people aren't born that way. I've heard, I haven't done much research. I've heard, like, oh, psychopaths are born and stuff. But it's like I'm not 100% on, the whole psychology behind that, or the mechanics of the mind behind that. But kids, especially, kids, we're not born as bad people or toxic people, or you see, I see kids, but because I've been through the blender again of school. I've been around some very racist kids too. Looking back now, it's kind, what they did was wrong, but it's like you also realize, being racist, either that was a product of who they were around, or they were, it's a product of who their parents are. Either their parents are racist and they teach the kids, or they know some other kids who are racist because their parents taught them to be racist. Stuff like that. It's like we are, as human beings, we are a product of our experiences, and the knowledge that is exchanged around us into us. So it's like, if you are ever feeling like you're a bad person or something like that, because when I grew up, I felt like a bad, because I had so much toxicity. I was a bully myself, at one point during my life, where I was very negative, or I was very you know I lashed out at people, verbally, or I'd put my, I'd get, bit physical, I guess, sometimes with my parents or something, like put my hands up to them or something, push them, but I'm not trying to excuse that. I'm just saying, um, that kind of what am I trying to say here? That kind of activity comes from, um, again, being around. I believe being around a very violent environment and seeing violence, and to this day, I'm not violent. I don't put my hands on anybody. But there is a part of me, or really, I want to say like this. This is me. Like I want to say it's my dark side, but it really isn't. It's my hate for humanity. It runs deep. And that's just from my experience with human beings. And then as you grow up, you start to see people are still acting the same way, and people are still abused. It pisses me off. Especially when I hear like stories about children being abused and stuff. That hits a different part. That hits like that hits my dark. That hits the devil. Like fuck those people. That abuse people. Especially abuse kids. Um, so it's like I won't get too deep into that. I know that could probably be um, that could be a whole video on its own. But just realize if you are surrounded by toxic family or toxic adults, there is help out there. Don't be afraid to report anybody. Um, Especially speak to a therapist. You don't always have to speak to a therapist. Um, at school. I know schools have therapists and stuff like that. Um, always, to me, speak on the outside. Never speak to a school therapist. Because to some degree, like especially if you're having an issue with one of the teachers at school or somebody at school, or you're around, a very unprofessional teacher, like don't tell anybody at the school. Tell somebody out the school. Like especially like if they're mad, like don't be afraid to report somebody to the police, especially if it's at school, because it's like if you tell the school, they're going to say, oh, we can handle it internally, and nothing's going to come of it. So feel free to report anybody, even your parents. If your parents are abusive, teachers, whatever, if you're around abusive adults, if you're a kid, like a preteen, whatever, a teenager, report them, or if you know somebody, like just a kid, or like your friend's little brother, is being, tell somebody. Or if you think something is happening, say so, ask about it, because try to help somebody, but yeah, there's no real reason why adults should be acting very toxic or very aggressive in front of children. So or against children. That's just wrong in so many ways. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and end off this video here. If you are watching, do feel free to give a comment down below. Thank you very much again for watching the pain scale, and you have a good one.